I stopped counting how many times I told my stylist, just make it work, while secretly hating what I saw in the mirror. Fine, thinning hair does something cruel after 60. It goes flat at the root and see-through at the crown. And most cuts make that worse, not better. Today I'm giving you 3 short hairstyles that were built for exactly this hair type. Cuts that create the illusion of thickness instead of exposing what's missing. These aren't trendy cuts pulled from a 25-year-old's Pinterest board. I researched the best haircuts and styling fixes for women over 60, so you walk into your next salon appointment knowing exactly what to ask for. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. I cover this every single week. Part 1. The Layered Pixie Crop. Here's something most women never hear from their stylist. Thinning hair doesn't need more length to look fuller, it needs less weight pulling it down. Long layers on fine hair act like tiny anchors, dragging strands flat against the scalp the second you step outside. You've felt this. You style it in the morning, and by 10 a.m. it's lying there lifeless, clinging to your head like it gave up. The layered pixie crop fixes this at the source, because there's simply less hair for gravity to fight. Ask for this specific cut. A graduated pixie with short layers cut vertically through the crown, longer texture left at the fringe, and the nape tapered close. Tell your stylist, point cut the ends, don't blunt cut them. Blunt ends on thin hair look like strands taped together, while point cutting removes weight and creates the illusion of individual, separated strands. The vertical layering through the crown is what actually builds height, because it lifts the hair away from the scalp instead of stacking it flat like a helmet. The moment this cut settles in, something shifts in how people look at you. That crown height reads as vitality, not effort, because nobody registers shorter hair. They register she looks awake. A woman I spoke with described walking into her granddaughter's dance recital and having 3 people ask if she'd done something different with her skin. She hadn't touched her skincare routine, her hair was simply lifted off her face for the first time in a decade, and that alone changed how tired she read to strangers. Maintain it by asking for a trim every 5 to 6 weeks. This cut grows out fast because the layers are the whole point, and once they grow past a certain length, the lift disappears entirely. Here's the before and after that matters most. Before, hair flattened by noon, roots visibly separated under salon lighting. After, root height that holds from breakfast to dinner, without a single extra product. But there's a second cut that solves a completely different fine hair problem. One that has nothing to do with flatness and everything to do with what's happening around your face. Part 2. The soft layered bob with side-swept fringe. Nobody tells you this, but thinning hair doesn't just thin evenly across your whole head. It usually recedes first at the temples and hairline, which is exactly where every eye lands first when someone looks at your face. You can have a full head of hair everywhere else and still feel exposed, because that one visible strip at your hairline is doing all the talking. If you've caught yourself angling your head away from bright light or overhead mirrors, that's what you're reacting to. The fix is a chin-length bob with soft internal layering, paired with a side-swept fringe that angles across the forehead instead of sitting straight across it. Say this exact phrase to your stylist. Razor the fringe at an angle, don't cut it blunt across. A blunt cut fringe on thin hair sits like a curtain with gaps you can see the scalp through. An angled, razored fringe overlaps itself as it falls, covering the hairline with layers of hair rather than one thin sheet of it. What changes isn't just the coverage, it's the whole balance of your face. The angled fringe draws the eye in a soft diagonal line instead of a flat horizontal one, which is why women who make this switch say people stop noticing their hairline entirely and start commenting on their eyes instead. One woman told me her sister, who sees her every single week, asked if she'd changed her glasses. She hadn't. The fringe had simply redirected where attention landed on her face. To keep the angle sharp, this cut needs reshaping every 4 weeks, specifically at the fringe line. The rest of the bob can stretch to 6, but the fringe loses its angle and starts falling flat much sooner. Before, a straight across fringe exposing thin patches at the hairline under any bright light. After, a soft diagonal sweep that reads as styled, intentional, and full. And this next cut solves something entirely different again. What happens when your hair isn't thin at the front, but thin everywhere, all at once? Part 3. The textured shag with root-lifting cut lines. This one surprises almost everyone. Shag cuts, the ones with choppy, textured layers, are actually one of the best cuts for fine hair, not the worst. The instinct is to think choppy equals messy equals worse for thin hair, but it's the opposite. The texture is cut into the hair itself, so the fullness doesn't depend on product or blow-drying technique holding it together all day. If your current style collapses the second humidity hits, this is the disconnect. Ask for a disconnected shag with short internal layers cut using a slide cutting technique. Slide cutting removes bulk while leaving the ends slightly textured and irregular rather than smooth, and that irregularity is what fine hair needs to fake density. The cut lines should be shortest at the crown, gradually lengthening toward the nape, so the shortest layers stand up on their own without any teasing or backcombing required. The real payoff shows up in photographs, oddly enough. Fine, smooth-cut hair photographs flat under camera flash because there's no texture to catch shadow and light. A textured shag creates natural dimension in every strand, so photos stop looking washed out at the crown. A woman who wrote in said her daughter-in-law asked to retake a family photo because your hair looked amazing in that one. She hadn't posed differently. The cut itself was simply catching light the old style never could. This cut actually stretches longer between salon visits than the other two, every 7 to 8 weeks, because the disconnected layers are designed to grow out into more texture, not less. Before, hair that photographed flat and lifeless under any direct light. After, natural-looking dimension that holds shape without a single styling product. But choosing the right cut is only half the equation. The wrong daily habits can undo any of these 3 cuts within a single week, and that's exactly what we're covering next. Part 4. The maintenance mistake that undoes all 3 cuts. Here's what nobody mentions when they hand you a gorgeous new shortcut and send you home. The wrong brush can flatten every single one of these styles back to where you started. And most women are using exactly that brush right now. A boar bristle brush, the kind marketed as gentle and natural, actually smooths fine hair down flat against the scalp with every stroke, which is the opposite of what a pixie, bob, or shag is built to do. Switch to a vented paddle brush with wide-set plastic bristles, used only while blow-drying with a round brush lifted at the root. Never brush flat against the head afterward. The mechanism is simple. Vented brushes let airflow pass through while you dry, which sets the root lift permanently as the hair cools, instead of pressing it down the way a solid back brush does. Dry your roots first, tilting your head slightly upside down for the first 60 seconds, before touching the rest of the hair. This one change extends the life of your cut between salon visits by nearly 2 weeks. Women who switch brushes tell me their stylist actually comments on it. One stylist said, "Whatever you're doing at home, keep doing it," not realizing the client hadn't changed her routine at all, only her brush. There's a second habit working against you too, sleeping with damp hair pressed into a flat pillow. Wet fine hair molds to whatever shape it's pressed into overnight, and that shape is almost always flat. Dry your hair fully before bed, even if that means a shorter blow-dry session focused only on the roots. Before, a fresh cut losing its shape within 2 days of leaving the salon chair. After, the same cut holding its lift and texture for the full 6 to 8 week stretch between appointments. Get the cut right, get the brush right, and the last piece is knowing exactly what to say in the chair so your stylist doesn't quietly default to something safer than what you actually asked for. You now know 3 cuts built specifically for fine thinning hair. The layered pixie crop for root lift, the angled fringe bob for hairline coverage, and the textured shag for natural dimension. Plus the exact brush switch that keeps any of them from falling flat. That's more than most women learn in a decade of salon visits. Which one of these 3 are you bringing to your next appointment? The pixie, the bob, or the shag? Tell me in the comments. Next week I'm covering the exact words to use when your stylist tries to talk you out of going shorter. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I'll see you in the next one.